Yet all that made me wonder why Bearfang was given the position of deputy in the first place. Even the worst leaders in history had some characteristics about them, such as being manipulative, to make people want to follow them. So what did the Pine Clan leader ever see in Bearfang to give him a position of power? Hello, welcome to another comic review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I will be reviewing the Warrior Cats fan comic, Warriors, Blood and Water, by Kelpie Art. And for those of you wondering, no, I will not explain what Warrior Cats is, or all the lore from the books. If I did, I would be here all day. Google would definitely have better explanations and answers than me anyway. In case you are interested in reading this comic afterward, content warnings are animal injury/death, murder, nightmares, blood, child abuse, discrimination, parental loss, and torture. I will start with the overall plot, then world building, and finally the characters. Since I am more interested in the story, I will not be critiquing the art, as I see amazing artwork as more of a bonus rather than a need for a comic to be considered good. Also, this will be spoiler free until between these timestamps, so if you want to avoid spoilers, I recommend skipping over that section. Now that those notes are out of the way, let's begin. And now a brief word from our sponsor, me. Yes, this is a self-advertisement. Recently, I have decided to open my Safe for Work art commissions indefinitely. I can draw people, animals, anthros, and full scenes. If you want to order a commission from me, more examples and pricing can be found in the description under the Other Places to Find Me section. As a second announcement, for those who don't know, at my shop you can find LGBT plus merch, gift for writers, and cute animal designs. They are all available on stickers, shirts, and much, much more. The link is also in the same section below. Thank you for listening, and back to the review. The plot is as follows. After a prophecy is delivered, Ravenkit and her father, a loner named Rowan, join Rain Clan. However, after her father is murdered and a cat named Wolfstorm joins Rain Clan from Pine Clan, Ravenfrost must look within herself to root out the darkness at the heart of the clan, or Rain Clan will not survive. After the slower prologue, Chapter 1 definitely started out with a bang. Rowan was killed by the Pine Clan deputy, Bearfang, for the sole reason of Rowan being an outsider. Naturally, Ravenfrost was furious and filled with grief. The situation quickly grew tense as Pine Clan was confronted about this at the gathering. Ravenfrost and Bearfang attacked each other and both left with some nasty scars. Things only escalated from there, and it was exciting to watch a major conflict between the two clans unfold. For the entire story, it was decent enough. The themes about prejudice and discrimination were passable, even though it was fumbled at the end. I'll get more into that in the spoiler section. The pacing could feel too fast at times, and I do wish that the author had slowed down in order for the reader to get to know some of the side characters more, such as Ravenfrost's friends and the apprentices. This would have made the cats feel more fleshed out, so when losses and attacks in the clan happened, it would have had more of an impact. As it was, the details about the characters that were presented were a bit bare bones, but got the job done. In terms of the world building, nothing really changed between this fanfiction and the canon. The clans may have lived in a different area and had different names, but that was about it in terms of major changes. However, there was a minor difference and that these clans had cats lined up for the role of deputy, so that way if the leader or previous deputy died, everyone knew who was next in line. It was a small detail, but it was still nice to see the variation. Another piece I also liked was the past war between Rain Clan and Pine Clan. This was especially true when it had a long-lasting impact involving Sleet Star having to make a massive sacrifice in order to appease Badger Star into not slaughtering all of Rain Clan. The uneasy truce between said clans also made for an interesting dynamic with plenty of tension. As the main character, Ravenfrost was decent and did have her share of flaws. She was one of the best hunters in the clan, along with being very loyal, especially when it came to looking out for her apprentice. Her biggest negative traits, being hot-tempered and impulsive, did come back to bite her a few times. For instance, she jumped to the conclusion that Wolfstorm was just as bad as Bearfang, and that he would want to hurt the Rain Clan apprentices for being half-clan. This made Ravenfrost a well-rounded character, especially when she learned from her mistakes after Wolfstorm confronted Ravenfrost about her attitude. One problem I did have with Ravenfrost, however, was as a narrator, she was a big fan of telling and not showing, which was a shame for a visual medium. For example, in the first chapter, Ravenfrost mentioned how she had to work twice as hard as her clanmates in order to prove her worth. However, when she arrived back at camp, Ravenfrost was clearly accepted amongst her clan from the way they all warmly greeted her, and that she was in line for the position of deputy. By not showing how Ravenfrost had to struggle at first, it made her words feel hollow. The same can be said for Ravenfrost's emotions, as she tended to say that she felt a certain way rather than let the reader come to their own conclusion. Issues aside, I thought the looming romance between Wolfstorm and Ravenfrost was cute. Although they were both prickly around each other at first, Ravenfrost slowly allowed herself to warm up to him after Wolfstorm saved her life. The only complaint I had is that the relationship seemed to develop a bit too fast, but it was still good. I also liked how they were able to overcome obstacles together. With Wolfstorm being the brother of Bearfang, it made sense that Rain Clan was worried about him at first when Wolfstorm decided to leave Pine Clan, especially with it being the night after Ronan was killed. What wasn't acceptable, however, was the outright hostility he had to face from Rain Clan despite doing nothing wrong. Thankfully, he was slowly accepted by the clan over time. A sad detail involving Wolfstorm was when he told Ravenfrost about his abusive father and what led to the loss of Wolfstorm's tail. This also built up to be that Wolfstorm was scared of his brother, who had followed in their father's paw steps to become just as awful. A minor gripe I have about the backstory, though, is that Wolfstorm's father was terrible to his kids, no matter the circumstances. In real life, abusers tend to hide their actions in public, which is why abuse can be hard to detect and why it can be hard for victims to leave. A realistic part that I did like was how Wolfstorm normalized and blamed himself for the abuse until he was finally shown different in Rain Clan. It really made his character feel that much deeper and explained more of his later actions, which I'll get into in the spoiler section. Bearfang was a nasty character and the overall villain of this story. Within the first chapter, he slaughtered Ravenfrost's father for merely once being a rogue. During the gathering, Bearfang also made very blatant threats toward half-clan cats, as well as Rain Clan as a whole. He even insulted Rowan to Ravenfrost's face when Rowan had only been killed the day before. Yet all that made me wonder why Bearfang was given the position of deputy in the first place. Even the worst leaders in history had some characteristics about them, such as being manipulative, to make people want to follow them. So what did the Pine Clan leader ever see in Bearfang to give him a position of power? Without any positive traits, Bearfang did feel a tiny bit flat. All that aside, Bearfang was an absolute terror to Rain Clan. Every time he was on a page, I knew there was going to be a fight. He definitely kept things going as an antagonist. For the leader of Rain Clan, Sleet Star was decent. As mentioned before, he wanted to avoid more war with Pine Clan, even if that meant damaging his own pride and tearing his family apart. Furthermore, Sleet Star also stood up for Wolfstorm when the warrior was being harassed by Ravenfrost's clanmates. That said, I do wish he had gotten more page time, especially with Ravenfrost. I got the feeling that Sleet Star was supposed to be seen as a second father figure to Ravenfrost, but since Sleet Star only interacted with Ravenfrost once or twice, the relationship didn't feel deep enough to me. Badger Star, the leader of Pine Clan, was quite the opposite from Sleet Star, however. Pine Clan leader had a bloated ego, along with what I assumed to be poor foresight, since he chose Bearfang as the second in command. That said, when push came to shove, Badger Star was willing to listen to reason. All in all, he was a pretty okay character. Alright, now on to the spoilers. I'll count to 3 seconds if you want to keep this book spoiler free. 1, 2, 3. And here we go. A pregnant cat being brutally attacked to the point some of her kittens were stillborn was not something I expected out of a Warrior Cats fan comic. It really went to show just how deep Bearfang's hatred of half-clan cats went. Not to mention how it raised the stakes in just how much danger Ravenfrost and the 2 apprentices were in. Speaking of apprentices, Darkpaw's death and Ravenfrost's subsequent exile was a mix of both sad and frustrating. Darkpaw was killed in cold blood after he and Ravenfrost are trapped by Bearfang and Wolfstorm. Wolfstorm begged his brother to let the apprentice go, but Bearfang refused. It was tragic to see Darkpaw, a cat Ravenfrost cared so much about, die right in front of her. Worst of all, Emberstar, the new leader after Sleet Star, didn't let Ravenfrost even get a word in before exiling both Wolfstorm and Ravenfrost. It was later revealed that Emberstar had a vendetta against Ravenfrost due to Deerpaw, Emberstar's daughter, being killed after an accident occurred while Ravenfrost was Deerpaw's mentor. In turn, Emberstar covered up Sleet Star's killer as well as watched while Ronan was slain, even though Emberstar could have saved him. It was horrible watching Rain Clan so easily turn on Ravenfrost because of a few lies from the new deputy, Crowfoot. Wolfstorm turning traitor after the pregnant cat being ambushed was heartbreaking. Even after being away from his brother, Wolfstorm still felt like Bearfang had a grip on him. Wolfstorm did face the consequences of his actions, as Ravenfrost was furious for quite a while, even if Wolfstorm had made a deal with his brother. Bearfang agreed to spare the apprentices if Wolfstorm helped on the raids. Unfortunately, we all saw how that turned out with Darkpaw. Wolfstorm did eventually stand up to Bearfang, but gave his life for Ravenfrost in the process. As for the last chapters, they started off decent, But the writer dropped the ball when it came to the main theme of discrimination. While Ravenfrost pointed out that inactions for the killings was just as bad as the act itself, one scene in the comic ended up tearing that point to shreds. After Bearfang was exposed for wanting to murder Badgerstar as well as killing Darkpaw, he stole a kit and was chased by both Pine Clan and Rain Clan warriors. Bearfang was cornered at a cliff and threatened to drop the kit. Instead, Ravenfrost offered herself up as a sacrifice in exchange. As a result, both clans just sat there while Ravenfrost was tortured and nearly killed before Wolfstorm finally jumped in. It made it seem like the whole clan had learned nothing about inaction in the end. To be fair to the writer though, she did note that she would have altered the scene if she could have gone back to fix it. Hindsight is 2020 after all. Finally, Ravenfrost becoming Ravenstar and Wolfstorm being resurrected did feel a bit cliché. At that point, however, with all the struggles Ravenfrost had been through, she had definitely earned her happy ending. Overall, I give this comic 3 out of 5 stars. Although it did lag in some places and the plot was predictable at times, the comic was still a good read. I adored the characters, and the main theme was meant from a good place, even if the execution was fumbled. I hope Kelpie will keep improving her craft and wish her the best of luck on her comic making journey.